What are your recommendations? Do you recommend people to get tested for histamine, or they usually can tell if they have a histamine intolerance, especially if they flare up or if they have allergies to pollen, things like that?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would keep a calendar of your symptoms. I love calendar. Whether you have belly pain, you have headache, you have mood issues, keep a calendar and don't make it complicated. Print out a white piece, from Google, you can print out June and put on your refrigerator. And when you have flares, just put an X and see what they have in common. And you're like, oh my gosh, every time I go to my son's soccer game, my skin falls off. Oh my gosh, every time I work out, I have migraines. Oh my gosh, every time that I eat gluten or I go out to restaurants is when my belly hurts. The calendar, I would say, helps like 80 to 90% of my patients figure out the issue all by themselves. So calendars where I would start to kind of get an awareness, are histamines a problem? And then I would take a look at your diet, because we can decrease the histamine load with a diet. And, high histamine foods are going to be processed foods with preservatives, food coloring, TBHQ, BHT, artificial flavors. Oftentimes gluten and dairy are high histamine foods. Red wine, kids, I'm sorry, everyone's going to click off, but red wine is a big histamine food. Kombucha and fermented foods are high histamines. Smoked cheese. So basically your favorite charcuterie platter is like your worst nightmare if you have a histamine issue.
Oh no, I'm just seeing all the people in their minds thinking like, this is so overwhelming.
So overwhelming, dried fruits. But just kind of having an awareness. I always tell people, there's no reason to jump in and start making drastic. Just be aware. Is this a problem for you?
Yeah, because I know people who do have high or they have either been tested that they have high histamine, and they've cut out a lot of foods, and so it's tough because almost every single food out there, or at least a lot of foods out there, are high histamine. So what do you recommend in those cases when that happens?
That I would really like for them to work with somebody like you, because I think we have become people that are isolationists. It's not even a word, but we've taught to be isolated, and now Google has made us think we're isolated. So we're like, I don't need help, I'll Google it. And we will become nutritionally deficient when we go on various diets without proper help from somebody who's trained in this. It seems like food is no big deal. Food is a huge deal, and we can create so many issues. I cannot tell you how many patients I have in practice who came because they either did a food sensitivity test or Googled their symptoms and decided to go on various diets, and their children have become so picky and so afraid of food and so nutritionally deficient because they didn't have somebody to guide them. Because when you take something away, you have to put something back. You can't just go, and then I'm not going to have any of this stuff. And yeah, in our practice, when I don't deal with adults, but I'll have some college kids, and let's say they drink red wine and they're like, well, I'm going to live life. I'm obviously going to a frat party. I'm like, okay, well, instead of the red wine, you're going to drink this drink. So you have, even in that case, we're doing continuous substitutions because we don't want to live a life of deprivation, and you're not going to be malnourished from lack of alcohol. But for other things, every time you take a food that's high in histamines, you're going to put one in that is low in histamines. And it's hard because when you're used to eating a certain way, all you know is remove. Your brain doesn't go, and now we're going to have daikon radishes, and now we're going to eat, barramundi fish from Australia. You don't know how to do that because you're not a trained nutritionist. And even if you are, you can't treat yourself because you can't treat yourself. You just can't.